What's up, y'all? You are listening to For the Artists, a podcast brought to you by Creative M Projects. I'm your host, Melissa Sharee. I have a California born, Iowa and Colorado raised girl in the house today, okay, who comes from a family of artists. And when I found out that she was an artist, I was like mind blown because I should have known she was an artist and I had no idea. And literally, her mom and dad are amazing artists. So the apple did not fall far from the tree. But let me not already start off going down this little rabbit trail. Let me keep talking about this person before I tell you who she is. In high school, her younger brother encouraged her to go to art school after graduation, but instead she found herself at Metro State, focused on a teaching career path. She continued to dabble in sketching and some pastels until a life change in 2008 had her fully delve into creating art and starting to paint. She appreciates all mediums and often enjoys using them together. She had her first independent art show in 2010. Okay, hello, let's snap that up. Followed by showings at the CHAC, which is the Chicano Humanities and Arts Council art gallery in Denver's Santa Fe Art District. Whoa. While she hasn't debuted any recent work, she continues to create while holding a full-time career in corporate America. And her name is Ariane. Oh my goodness. Ariane, the visual artist, the creative, the woman extraordinaire who is doing so many things. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm
Great.
so glad you said yes.
Me too.
All right. So, you know what? Off top, I'm already wanting to ask you about
Mhm.
the balance of life because it sounds like you are balancing a lot of things. So, what does that look like for you in terms of how you balance things?
That's a great question, Melissa. And I will say that I think a lot of us are in this space right now, especially as we've had these huge transitions over the last like 3 years, right? And so I think a lot of people are kind of finding this space where, oh my gosh, everything is changing. And maybe I'm looking at a new career or new something like that and how to make it all work. And I think for me, it's been huge career change. I left my main career back in December, I'd been there for 20 years. And now I'm embarking on this kind of consultancy business where I really dive into the things that I love. And at the same time, I'm really pushing myself to get back into the creative space because I see it in myself. I know it in myself that when I'm not being creative, I start to just feel stuck and weighed down and, honestly, not even able to process. Sometimes when I'm doing just a sketch or just envisioning my new landscaping, that's
Mhm.
art. I'm gonna say that's art. Or redoing the bathroom, right? Like those things help my brain kind of defrag into a way that, it's like all the back loud problems, the world stuff is happening. But when I focus down into doing something that is creative, it allows my brain to just kind of fall into place. And then I feel a little bit more centered, a little bit more focused. Sometimes it's like a little bit of kick in the pants, like, okay, go get busy, like enough procrastination. But it takes those moments of creativity, I think, to really help me find the balance. And it's been a lesson learned over many years.
Over many years. Yeah, I guess there's a tension that comes from the like being an artist and wanting to be creative and then the responsibility of actually like living in this world when you haven't made creativity like your full-time gig.
Yeah, yeah. It's intimidating. I'm not gonna lie. Like it really is and that's part of the reason when you heard it, you read my bio and that's that moment like in high school, right? Of um, that was the mid 90s and thinking about being an artist or thinking about being a journalist at that point in time didn't seem like a great place where I could also have, a family and be able to be around for my children and all of those things because, well, the internet wasn't what it is today. Um, and it was that how do I put food on the table and do the things I love. And I felt like I had felt a melding of it in teaching, but not exactly, didn't quite hit the point.
Hmm. Okay, so would you say now that you mentioned that you're trying to get back into like more creative space or creative spaces? I'm thinking about just your like intention. Like do you like do you set intentions and do you make that an intentional thing and how do you do that where you haven't been able to do that in the past maybe?
I think this is your intention is the exact space to be in. And I haven't been as intentional. I have more so just used it as, like I said, a defrag or a way to kind of therapize through something, as opposed to really being intentional about it and thinking about how do I create pieces for the world to see. I think a lot of times in these most recent years, it's been creating art for just myself or creating art that some may not say is art, right? But I think that when we look at our homes and we're doing redecoration or remodel in our yards and all of those things, there's art in that. When I'm braiding my daughter's hair, there's art in that. So yeah, maybe I'm not doing the most traditional forms of art, but I think that I'm still doing some components of that. Did I hit on your question? I feel like I got really into it and I thought, oh, my brain just went.
Uh, yeah, you did. I think I was also trying to get at, I think sometimes we we'll be like, "Oh, I have an intention of doing something," but then when it comes to the execution of actually being
Yes,
intent, it's like two different things. So like one is a
it is.
thought and then an action. So I'm
Yes.
like, what do you do to make it an action?
I think I'm working on making it an action, and part of it is making my art supplies available. So right now,
Mm,
in a minute ago, all of this was stored away. At some point, honestly, between my last art show and in this last year, a lot of it was put away.
mm,
Just my focus around my family and corporation in corporate America, um, really kind of just took over. And so it was intentionally unpacking the things, bringing them out of storage, bringing them into spaces where I could readily access them. So, like right now, as we're talking, I know there's my portable art bag over here with my stuff. Like I could just grab it and go out and sketch, even if it's just the kitchen table. I got watercolors here. I've got markers. I've got brushes. So the things that are in the moment of, and that's part of it too. Sometimes is having those tools available when you're in that moment.
mhm.
And I think that sometimes when you have to stop like that creative moment to get those tools ready to like do the thing that's in your head, it can totally like stop you in your tracks. Stop me in my tracks. I should say you. It's really about me. So it stops me in my tracks. And so I thought maybe if I put things out and they're more readily available, when I have that intention that I want to go create art, it's really easy to execute upon because it's all right here, right? Like I can't say to myself, well, Ariane, it's all in storage. So I mean, even if you wanted to do a painting, like you can't get to your stuff. No,
Mhm.
no, no, no. It's right here. So
Yes.
do the thing.
Yes, that's so good. That's so good. So that's that you answered it right there. Boom. Because that's very tangible. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
someone can relate to that, like having things readily accessible and available. And what I love
Yeah.
about it, because you're a visual artist, it's like, well, actually, you know what? That's not even true what I was about to say. I was like, sometimes we have these like reality reasons of
Mm-hmm.
why we are like hindered from creating, and it's because we don't have access to the tools.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't have the money to buy the paints.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't have the money. Usually it's tied to money. We don't have the money to get the studio time, or whatever it is. But it's like at a certain point, it's like if we really want to do something, it's like we find a way to be able to create. And aside from those things that are reality hindrances, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. It. And there's an expectation, I think, that we put upon ourselves. I put upon myself, I know for sure, of I once I create something, I have to share it, right? Like it's that every artist should share every piece, and that's not true.
Mhm.
And it's a story that runs in my head, but I have to kind of like check that pattern and say, no, 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 you can create art just for you. And you can then choose what you want to share later, right? So I think it's also giving yourself a little bit permission to be messy and get
Yeah.
in it and not think that anybody's judging you about what you're creating. You don't have to share it with anybody. It can be just a piece for you. And then when you do feel ready to share, there's often like a story that comes with it, because it's like all these things are happening when I pushed myself to like make this thing.
Mhm.
So I think it's that too, of giving yourself a little bit of permission to be vulnerable, be messy, to make mistakes, and to know that you can keep it to yourself. It's your choice if you want to share your art or not.
Yes. Ooh, I love that too. I love that too. Because the sharing part, sometimes people, like you said, sometimes people will only attribute it to being art if it is like shared or
Yeah.
shareable. But really, it's like, I don't know. I feel like creating is the ability to bring something that was not into existence. And that
Yes.
has nothing to do with whether or not somebody else sees it or you share it with somebody or not. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this wasn't there before I brought it into existence by making it or creating it or whatever. So it is created and it is art.
And it's like, as you were saying that, it came to my mind of just even the work I do for corporate America, doing project and change management. You're creating, right?
Mhm.
You're solving puzzles. We're throwing a whole box upside down and saying, how do we make everything fit? And do we have all the pieces? So like, even we're creating in those roles, maybe when we don't often think we are. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was listening to someone, he's like a preacher slash motivational speaker, and there was something that he said. I'm not gonna say it the way he said it, but in a nutshell, basically what he was saying is that, there are people who they're really content with like where they are and what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing and what they
Mm-hmm.
have,
Mm-hmm.
but because they feel like someone outside of themselves would not think that what they have is enough or what they're doing is enough. It's like they don't want to embrace the fact that, like, no, I actually really love like where I'm at with what I'm doing. And that came up. I'm thinking about that as in terms of what you just said, because I feel like even when it comes to creating, it's like we have to free ourselves as artists and creatives to be okay with like, no, I love this. This is exactly what I wanted to be doing, exactly what I wanted to make. And it doesn't really matter if you don't get it or you don't understand or you don't like it. Like, I'm good. I love it. you know?
Yes. Yes, 100%. And it's just like thinking as you're talking too of, it is that space of being able to say, I love it and I can do it and it makes me happy. And maybe somebody pops by my home and they're like, ooh, who did that painting? Right. Of, and you're like, oh, that's fine. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. And how fulfilling that is. And then on the flip side is when you do choose to share the art. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, is anybody going to appreciate it? Is anyone going to like it? Is anybody going to buy this?
Yeah.
And just that waiting to hear what people like kind of outside of your sphere think about your art is like so incredibly vulnerable. And so like, I think it is super intentional about that space of holding your art close, like,
Mhm.
and kind of until you're ready to be like, okay, I want the world to see it, because you do cherish those pieces, and just making sure that you're feeling special about them before you allow anybody else to say what they need to say about your art.
Yeah. Okay, so take me back for a second. Now you mentioned high school. So is high
Mhm.
school when you you realized like, I'm pretty good at what I'm doing? Or was it sooner?
I don't know that I ever realized that I'm pretty good at what I'm doing,
Mm,
to be really frankly honest with you.
mm-hmm,
I think that just growing up with my bio dad, and how he looks at everything through artistic lenses, and being able to, he talks about a lot of my talking about a sunset and contrasting colors, and then talking about it in the grocery store when we were shopping, and I was like, really? So I think it's that, sorry, I got totally lost in that moment.
you went back there to the
I
sunset.
did. I totally did. And then I was like, wait, what are we talking about? Because I was like, okay, we're driving through the Wes's Hills. And I was like, hold on.
When did you
Um,
realize you were good?
yeah. Yeah. And I think it was probably honestly in that moment in high
Mm,
school that my little brother looked at the things that I created and thought that they were good enough. And
mm,
then to have my teachers, like at my high school art teacher, I had to take an art school to graduate. So I found myself in an art class with my brother,
mm-hmm,
probably hence the reason why he's like, why don't you go to art school? And I did a pointillism straight line piece, and doing that creation of that. And then as just kind of a piece. And honestly, as I think back about it, it was really kind of therapeutic too, when I think about all the pieces that are in that element of what was happening in my life at that point. No intention, right? Really to share it beyond that. And then my teacher coming to me and saying, this is wonderful. And we have an art show and we want to show it. And I'm like, you want my work? You want to like, and they're like, we're going to professionally frame it, which I can't tell you how much meant to me, because I can't, my parents could not afford to do something like that at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe it was at that moment that I thought, I might be actually really good at this. Um, and then maybe, honestly, the last moment might have been earlier this week. My mom shared a flashback of my chalk gallery and the paintings I had put up, and I ended up selling many of them. And somebody came back and was like, I love this one. I've always loved this one. Do you still have it? And if you do, can I please buy it? And I was like, wow, I created that piece like 8 years ago. And to see that somebody still loves it,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I am an artist. Maybe I'm like a real artist, like a for real artist. And I might be actually good at this. So I think that might happen. It happens over occasionally.
Okay, I got two different questions out of what you just said. So let me go to the first one, because I think the other one's a little bit juicier. It has a little more depth.
Okay.
I'll remember it. But real quick, so did you have any, outside of the fact that you were in that art class, because you learned some skills and developed in that class, I'm sure. Did you have any other like formalized training to do it? It was just a natural gift.
I guess so. Yes, I think just maybe to watching both my dads. So my bio dad Bear, and he has really great black and white watercolor kind of abstract drawings, and my stepdad Pops, who would do oil paintings.
Hmm.
And I remember like when I was little and watching him create a little flower pot with marigolds in it, and just being like blown away how much texture was in it and how bright the colors were. So I think
Mhm.
those are really the only influences. I didn't go to art school. I, studied art just as part of my college package, if you will, but no, I've had no formal training.
Okay.
Yes, mad respect for those that do and are confident to invest themselves in doing that.
Yes, mad respect. But
Mad
I also
respect.
think there's I don't know if the word is mad respect, but I think it's amazing to me that each one of us, like everybody, is like just naturally given the ability to do something really well and really amazing without even
Mm,
really having to think about it or put a whole lot of effort into it. I mean, not to say that they shouldn't put effort into it to develop it, but I just, to me, that amazes me. Like the fact that you have the ability to paint and to draw and to bring things to life on different types of canvases. Like I just think that that is so amazing. Which leads me to the other question that came up for me while you were talking, because I think you had also mentioned, you said you weren't sure that you believed in yourself or that you were good. There was something you said along those
Yeah.
lines, and I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Because it's just funny how that happens, like when you can do something naturally and everyone else can kind of see what you can do, and then it's like we question, well, I don't know, you know what I mean? And I wonder, I guess my question is, you know had you fully believed in yourself, do you think you would have chosen a different path in terms of like full force, like pursuing art like full time in a different capacity? Or do you think you would have continued to do what you've done in terms of your journey and the choices that you've made career wise?
It's a really great question. I think so. I want to answer two parts. So the first part kind of just around believing in yourself, right? And how we can often in our own ways. And and honestly, as I look back about it, there were so many things that were happening in my life that were influencing those decisions that I was making. And they weren't necessarily my dreams and desires that I was making choices on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was and I can allow those things to be a reason why I chose not to do the thing that I was most fearful of.
Mm.
So there was a lot happening there. And there are times where I wish I would have pushed past that fear, right? And done it anyway. And gosh, I don't know what my life would look like if I had done that. But I also, the other side of this is, the community that I grew up in, the high school that I went to, when we talked careers and what you could be when you grew up, there wasn't a lot of really deep discussion about it. Nobody sat down and talked to me and said, hey, we noticed you love visual arts. And did you know you could be an artist and do that kind of creative work in architecture,
Mm-hmm.
in marketing, and like all these other things, that there were actual career options that could provide the kind of like what my 17, 18-year-old me was thinking I was going to need to be able to have a family. But nobody talked to me about that. And I feel like if somebody had said, here are the ways that you could do this. We noticed that your aptitude here. We noticed how you light up when you do this thing, right? And here are ways in which you could dig into building a career that allows you to continue to do it. But I didn't have that. So I didn't realize all of those options until much later in life. I would love to have been an architect. I would love to have been, like a landscape designer. Those are all very creative, very like artistic things that are like legit job fields. Not to say fine art is not. It is an absolute legit career path. But for me, where I was thinking about what I needed, I wish somebody had just sat down and said, hey, there is a way for you to be able to do this and continue to create.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can say the same about myself. I
I mean,
wish somebody.
yeah. So like, you got to get out your own way. But I think for the young folks and the youth, we just need to be a little bit more tuned in to the things that really drive them. And if art is that, how do we help that seed grow into something that can really help them be amazing people in the world?
Yeah. So, what was that like to have your own show, like a gallery show? It was just yours, or you were part of someone else's?
It was just mine. And I had this amazing tribe of women
Mm-hmm.
that came together to help make that happen. I can think of sitting in my living room and everybody grabbing a piece of art and saying, "What's the name of this piece?" And I was like, "I don't know. I didn't name it." Right. Like, so naming and talking about the pieces and like figuring out what like had to price them at. And then a very, very dear friend of mine had a studio in the Highlands here in Denver, and it had like a yoga studio. And she said, "You can use this, just can't put holes in the wall." I'm like, okay, so we can just, those little sticky hooks will be fine. And we made it work. And I put up all these different pieces of art, and I invited all of my family, my closest friends. It wasn't really a big, huge public thing, but it was available to that. And I think that honestly, even though it wasn't, red carpet type of showing, felt so monumental to me at that moment in my life.
Mhm.
Having gone through a divorce, a career change, digging into the art, showing kind of all the things were in my soul on a visual scape of people to look at. It was a vulnerable space, and I just am so grateful for that tribe of women that I helped me kind of just keep doing it, right? Because I could have backed
Mhm.
out. I could have easily been like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's just one of my friends," and like, no big galleries accepting me.
Mhm.
And they were like, "No, we're gonna do this because we believe in you, right? You believe in us, we believe in you, and we're gonna help you do all the things to get through this." And we did, and it was a wonderful time. It really was, and I was surprised at how many faces showed up that I hadn't seen in years and were there to support me. And I think that's always the biggest gift. Anytime I had an art show where I was putting my stuff on display, especially when I was with Chalk, where it was open for the whole public to see, of
Mhm.
having some of those champions and those people that really believe in you come through, right? And say, "We're here, we support you, we see you, we see what you're doing," and just how much that meant and how amazing that felt. But it was also nerve-wracking, 100%.
Do you think you'll do it again?
One day I would love to do it again.
Okay.
I am thinking about the next group of pieces that I want to create and what it might look like. And when I
Mhm.
get to that space, I'd love to share them.
Okay. So from a logistics standpoint, in terms of your tribe,
Yeah.
you asked each of these women to be part or support you,
Mhm.
or is that how that worked?
Kind of. I mean, it was this group of friends of people that, and I will say, I think especially going through my divorce and how many really strong, amazing, phenomenal women came into my life or rose into more prominent parts of my life during that time. And they just kind of stuck with me
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of stuck with each other, but it wasn't even that I had to necessarily give a specific ask. It was, "I'm not sure how to do this thing, but I want to do this thing. Can you help?" And it was like, "Yes, let's all get together and we will figure it out." And
Mm-hmm.
it was really through that I was able to bring an idea into reality.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you sharing that because I think sometimes when people are telling their stories, they jump from this part to this part way over here, and then they leave all the middle stuff, and everyone's like,
Oh,
that's the
right.
part that I actually need to help me because I have no idea, I have no clue."
Yeah. Yes. Having a tribe, a village, your people, and it doesn't have to be vast. I was fortunate. I think it was 7 ladies that landed
Mm-hmm.
up in my living room and helped me put all the pieces together. But important. It's important to have those people that encourage you when you can't encourage yourself, when you hit that wall, when you feel like you're out of inspiration, when the hurt feels too big to create. You need
Mm-hmm.
those people in your life to help you say that you can, and I'm here. to help you do it.
Ooh, okay, you're quotable right there. When the hurt feels too big to create. That's quotable. Because I was thinking when you talked about how this was all happening, like I guess around the time or after you're going through this divorce, I'm like, so did that, you know, sometimes when things happen in life, it's like we just stop.
Yeah.
We don't, we can't move forward, or we get into these places where it's really dark and it's hard to climb out of. And so I guess your tribe was what helped you during that time, or were there other
Thousand
things?
percent. 1,000%, I would say it was my family, my mom and my brother specifically, my stepdad, and this network of amazing, and I call them my PWs, like they are my phenomenal women, that I can truly trust myself to be vulnerable with, who I know will speak to me and with me with love, even through the hard things they might need to share.
Mhm.
Um, and that really was, and some of us were going through it together. Like there was a few of us that were all in that space of, we got married real young, we had kids real young, and then here we are kind of figuring out the rest of our lives in our 30s. And I don't know exactly how to do it, and being able to be there for each other. And I think when, they had the moments of discouragement, should I go back to school? Yes. How do I help you? Right. It was all of that. And it 1,000% was a big part of moving through that.
Okay. Now, Ariane, you strike me as the type of personality where if you need help, you would have no problem crying out for help, asking for help, seeking the help that you need. Am I spot on, or is that not true?
It should be. It should be true, right? But no, 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 no. It's not. I have a real,
Okay.
yeah, that's hard for me.
Okay. Yeah, and I asked that because you exude, there's a strength about you, that comes out. And so, for someone who's listening, who might be, may not going through that exact hard time, you
Yeah.
know, it's like the hard times might have a different name, a different situation, but like hard is hard, right? And we all come up against these hard, difficult times that are, I can't think of the word, debilitating. You just
Yeah.
kind of almost get kind of paralyzed sometimes by the things that you're feeling and what's happening. And so, yeah, I guess I just wanted to speak to, how we move forward in those times with getting the help that we need, especially like when we're uncomfortable doing so, or we're not sure how to do it. So,
Yeah. I
you're,
think it is. And here's the thing, I think that this conundrum for myself is, I know all the things I'm supposed to do. I know all
mm-hmm,
the ways that I can do and need to do. And I know all the people that are there, but it's allowing myself to ask for the help. And I can be, I come from a whole family of very strong women that I felt like could solve the world's problems. And, specifically my mother and what she has lived through and led us through, that there's a little bit of a feeling like, well, if she could do it, I could do it too, right? We're not the same
mm-hmm,
person, and that's not fair. Um, and so it is really being to a space of, it's a couple things I've learned. A couple things I've learned in this is being ready to ask for help
mm-hmm.
and knowing what to ask for. Because sometimes people don't know, right? So like
That's true.
I'm like, I just need you to sit there and let me cry, right? And have my moment, or I need you to come, like give me a little shake and say, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Like sometimes you just need people to know, or I should say sometimes people need to know exactly what you need. And so being able to identify, I'm hurting, and
Mm-hmm.
I need just you to be here, or I need to call and talk this through with you, or I need to go and walk, right? Of being able to be like really specific and saying, this is the things that I need and that you could, help with. And the other thing is is, and I just had this conversation with a very dear friend of mine the other day, is don't dismiss your pain or where your need is because you think somebody else's plate is too full. You're making a choice for the other person by saying, but I see all the things that are happening in your life and I didn't want to put this on you. And I know I am guilty of that too, of saying I don't want to put more on another person's plate, but that's not also not fair, right? We need to tell the people that love us that we need them and we need their help and allow them to give us what they can. And so I think there's, just a few things of being courageous, trying to identify the thing that you need, even if it's just a hug, even if it's just like, I need to go, scream it out. I need to go cry it out, or I just need to work through a problem with you. And then there's the other thing is I may not know what I need, but I can't hold this in anymore. And I need to be able to share it with somebody. So I think it's continuous learning, right? As we grow into the people that we are. I will not say grown up because when are we ever really grown up? But as we grow into the people we are, it is constant learning and constant growth of saying, how do we work through the things that are really hard and allow people to help us because we need them. Even if we want to just push everybody away and say, we got this and we can do it and we'll be back when we're better. It's really not true. We need that help now in that moment.
We need it. And you know what? Being courageous is being vulnerable. Because I like what you said about, sometimes we don't know what we need. I mean, I've had so many times where I didn't really know what I needed until I took the vulnerable moment, to open up my mouth and communicate with somebody. And then in that moment, as I'm being vulnerable, then it's like the aha comes and it's like, oh my gosh, that's what that was, or that's what I needed. But if I wouldn't have even went there, I would have still just been trapped and not even really knowing exactly what it was that I needed. Does that make sense?
1,000%. We get caught in that swirl, right? Of all the things we know and all the perspectives we have and know to be true. And we just swirl around on that same idea and we can perseverate. And the minute that we open our mouths to talk to somebody, that stirring stops, and things are allowed to simmer and what's supposed to bubble to the top will. So I think it's that you do need to be able to say, I've been ruminating on this, or I can't get this thought out of my head, or this feeling I just can't shake, to bring in somebody else to stop stirring and say, hold on, let's just leave it and let's see, just pause for a moment and what floats to the top and how do we take care of it and how we help you with it.
How emotional are you when you paint and when you sketch? I'm curious.
So I will say it depends. When I'm thinking about doing home design or garden design, yard design, I'm usually in a pretty upbeat space or determined, right? Like I have a vision and I could see it and I wish I could draw this better. It's just not my drawing style, right? And then when I really get into a lot of the art that's been seen in my shows, because I don't show my landscape sketches at the art shows. Nobody wants to see that. But when I get into the pieces that really create, there is a lot of emotional energy that goes into it. And I will say that I think the multitude, because there were probably 20 different pieces I created during that time in my life where I was in major change, like huge upheaval in life, right? And I allowed it to come through and kind of express it through the paintings. And I think that maybe scared me a smidge into feeling like every time I created that was going to be this huge upheaval of feelings. And so it's kind of about what I talked about earlier about when the pain feels too big to create, right? Like I'm not sure if I'm ready to pull that out. So like my pops passing away 5 years ago. I know that's sitting in me. I know that's ready to come out in some artwork, but I have to be ready to feel the feels when I create because it will just come out. So sometimes that can, and that's just something I've learned about myself as being an artist and going through what I did before, of how much emotion of me came out into those paintings. And afterwards, it was a little bit exhausting. And so thinking about pulling that back up and creating new pieces and being vulnerable and emotional again, and like intentionally, it's a yield sign, right? Not a stop sign. It's a yield sign to say, are you in the right space to be able to do this? And maybe you're not yet. So let's just keep doing the things that help you create until you are. And I'll feel it when I feel it, and it'll happen. And you'll be the first person I share it with.
Wow. I was thinking as you were talking, like, I think I've had this conversation. I don't know if I've had this conversation on a podcast or not, but I know I've had this conversation. It's like when you're a singer-songwriter and you're writing songs that are very personal and they relate to a period of time or a specific incident or a very specific person. It's like, once you give that song life, and it's out there, it's almost like you have to be in a place where you are ready to relive whatever that thing is, because you released it and it's out there, and then if it resonates with people, you're going to have to continue to sing it. You're going to have to continue to perform it. So it's like, you need to be okay with it and realize that, that your journey, like your process, your healing process, as you're moving in your journey, it still might not be done. Like, as you continue to sing it and all that stuff, like, you'll get more and more, I guess, through it, to where you're like, finally you come to a place where you're like, okay, this is definitely now a thing of the past, and I can sing this song and I won't be overly emotional. I can relate to it, but it's from a different space and time.
100%. It is. I think I can't speak for other artists, but I would feel that I felt the exact same way of, and also of, and I think this is the difference between, a singer-songwriter and a visual artist, of you still get to kind of keep the song with you. And there's been moments where I've had to let go of paintings to people I don't know. And it's just like, oh, okay. Can I maybe have it back? Where it is like, I'm literally letting this piece of me go to a complete stranger, and, being ready to do that too, right? Of saying, and I'm never going to see that again, right? I have some pictures of that painting, but it's sitting in somebody's home, which is really what I really want for my artwork to be. But at the same time, letting go of something that you poured that emotional energy into can be tough.
Yeah, I felt that way over some earrings that, I make earrings, and sometimes I only will make one unique type of pair. And I want to keep every pair I make, but I don't. And then it's like, oh, there goes that pair of earrings.
I'm proud of you. Go.
Oh my gosh. Do you have a favorite color?
Gosh, I would say, I don't know that I do, but I love blues and I love reds. I love very much jewel toned, bright colors, I would say. And I also love black, like wearing some blue, green today, but normally you'd find me in black. And I feel good in it. I don't know. It just does. And so, but yeah, I don't know. To paint with though?
Yeah.
Nope. Still don't have a favorite. Can't
You
say.
just like them all.
I like them all. And I love the mix of, and even sometimes I look at my tattoos and I think, ooh, I wish I would have done this black and white and with this color as opposed to all color, or I wish I would, do you know what I mean? So it's like a little bit of changes, ebbs and flows with the piece and the moment, the feeling. Sometimes it might be orange, maybe purple.
I like that you said orange, because that's our signature color for CMP. Hey,
Love
we're all about the orange.
Love it. I love it.
I know you do.
Orange and blue. Okay, I'll be nice.
Oh my gosh.
It's not even preseason yet.
I was about to say, look, we about to go into sports now. We about to start a whole different topic, a whole new episode. Girls Gone Football.
Well
But
done.
anyway, oh my gosh. Well, I'm gonna start wrapping it up. We've been on here for a minute. So shoot. I mean, if somebody wants to see your stuff, they got to go to Denver.
This is true. Actually, I don't even really have any of it up on social media anymore. I might have to think about that, right? Like it's been a minute since I've
Yeah.
really showcased it, and maybe it's time to get that part of worth mentioning in gear, right? Like got this
Maybe.
whole thing, so why can't that be a component of it?
Yeah. I mean, let us know. You took everything off for a reason.
I think it was difficult to figure out how to shoot my pieces in a way that they would transfer into the digital environment, right? Because some are huge, some are small, and just like what's the right way to capture that. And so, I know a gentleman. He actually works in like the office over from me. That is pretty good with websites and pictures and stuff. So maybe it's time to say, hey, can you do some things with these paintings and put them up on a website for me? Because I could really use that help. So
yeah, that you make a good point, because sometimes it's like, even if I'm just trying to capture a picture, and then it's just it's like there's so much that's lost in translation. You cannot get the whole experience and all the beauty and all the wonderfulness of something when you take it from one format and you put it to another.
a photo of Monet and standing in front of Monet are not the same thing.
Exactly. But maybe we can still get a little taste of
I do have my original piece up here, but I will be happy to share some other. I do have some photos that I'd be happy to share with you of some of my artwork. But most of it is hanging somewhere.
Right.
So I didn't know about taking it off walls.
That's all right. You're gonna create some new stuff.
I am, and I told you you're gonna be the first to hear about it. So as soon as it is ready to be shared with the world, I'm coming to you first and saying, here's what I created. Be
It's
gentle.
Like breaking news.
Yes.
We have it first.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So you've already said so much. I mean, there's so much. This is a rich episode. But if there's any one last thing that you would like to say to any sort of budding or aspiring visual artist, or just any young person that has talent that's kind of on the fence with what to do with it, like, what would you say?
I think I would say, don't be afraid to share it. Find ways to embed it in all of the things that you do today, because there is a way, just maybe hadn't thought about it yet. And just enjoy it. Like, allow it to be a part of yourself and be proud of it. And it doesn't need to be perfect. And also remember to know when to walk away, because sometimes it's beautiful and then we keep fussing and then we're like, what happened? So it's that knowing when to walk away from the piece, because it feels good.
Nice. Okay. I received myself too. How about that? Well, I have really enjoyed our conversation. I want to thank you again for coming on and being featured on this episode. Hopefully this won't be your last time. Maybe next time I'll come to you in Denver.
Oh, that would be so fun. And I'll have my pieces up and ready, and we can just let everybody see, hey, she did do some things. And you're here to showcase it live.
Yep. So I'll be looking forward to that.
Me too.
All right. Well, Y'all, we are going to wrap up this episode. Wow, I have been talking to the one and only Ariane. She is not only a visual artist, but she truly is a phenomenal woman who is doing so many, many amazing things and impacting so many people in her family and beyond. So, you've been listening to For the Artists. It's a podcast that has been brought to you by Creative M Projects, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And until next week, you already know what it is. Y'all, I want you to keep creating from the inside out. Bye.